All right, welcome back to another tutorial in Maya. This is going to be part two of the displacement map terrain, building an 8-bit or a 16-bit terrain map. So anyway, there is one more part to this, so you might want to go back and watch part one, but it's not necessarily that important because you can do this one first and then go back and get some more information from part one. So anyway, as you can see here, we have a camera doing the classic, fly through the scene. So no big deal there, just a camera attached to a motion path. And then I have the physical sun and sky system going here, and this is what the render actually looks like. So what we're seeing here is just a color map, the original photograph that I've mapped, just put on the color node there, and output this 16-bit mesh from Photoshop. And in the previous tutorial, we output an 8-bit mesh and noticed some aliasing and some artifacts and some weird stair-stepping and things like that. And sometimes all of that stair-stepping and stuff can be smoothed out with using a 16-bit terrain map or mesh. So you got to remember that a 16-bit is going to have a lot more information in it and a lot more faces and all of that. So essentially this is what we're looking at, and we've made some adjustments to the Photoshop file, the original image, and let's take a look at those for a moment. Let's see if I can bring up Photoshop. This is what it actually looked like, the picture that we've been dealing with. So in this case, we want to make a displacement map out of this, and then we want to output that to a mesh. We're just going to output a 3D mesh that we can import right back into Maya. But as you see here, the map is not, if we make this a displacement map, then all of these areas are going to be the highest points. So this will grow and be like the highest point, and this will be a low point. But in reality, in this image, because the light is sort of coming in at the direction it is, it's highlighting this side, so that would make a displacement map think, wow, this is the highest point in the scene or in this terrain. So really what we want to do is knock this down to about the same level as here, and then we want to adjust this area kind of right in here to sort of be equal to what we kind of see over here. It's a incorrect science, so to speak, so you just have to play around with this stuff a whole lot. So let's get started on the first part of creating a 16-bit map and make a nice clean mesh for this. So first I'm going to create a new file here, and when you open a new file, you kind of want to make sure that you're set at, I'm going to use a 1024 by 1024, 72, but make sure you're set on 16-bit right here, okay? And I think I'll title this one 16-bit creator or something, just so we can keep track of what it is. So, and then I'll put tutorial, because you have to kind of keep a system organized when you start doing this stuff, because it'll create a whole bunch of files. But anyway, we're just going to create one, and we're going to call it that. All right, so here it is over here. I'm going to bring my windows over, and here's our original image, and then here is our starting point. So in this case, I think I might want to just peel that one off, and we'll take a look at this one right here. And I think I'll just command minus, make it down a little smaller. All right, so let's bring this image right here into this 16-bit file and see what happens. Right now, it will do something kind of funny. You'll probably get this: the target has a different depth. Well, yes, it does, but we're not so concerned with that right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit, do we want to proceed? Yes. Okay. So there it is in there, and what we want to do is I noticed that if I scroll out a bit here, it really is pretty large in the scene. So if I just grab a corner and shift click and sort of bring it down there, and let's move it into place first and get it locked down, and then we can create our other maps and whatnot. So let's see how that's looking. Okay, so I may just go with that, and I'm going to just close the original image because we don't need that anymore. And now we have some layers going over here, And in this case, I'm going to kind of duplicate this layer a couple of times, just because we're going to make some color maps and some bump maps or something. I mean, I think I'll just make a color map and we'll attach that color map. So go ahead and turn off your other layers right there, and let's just work with the base layer right here. Now, real easy to make a displacement map, but let's do a couple of adjustments first, because we know that this is going to be a problem and this is going to be a problem in our mesh. So let's come in here, and I think I'll just use the burn tool. Burning's actually pretty good for this, and highlights at 100, that's pretty good. So I'll just upsize my brush a little bit there, and let's bring this down. So you'll get the idea. I'm just going to make a couple of quick adjustments here, and then we'll be on the road to doing better things in Maya. But you can see where this is kind of important, because you know, you want to have the terrain looking somewhat correct. Okay, so I burned that in. Let's burn this in a bit, and then we'll output this to a mesh. All right. There we go. Now, in order to make it look good as a mesh, you always have to add some blur to it. So let's just do that. I'm not even going to render this out as a mesh yet. So let's go in and add some blur to this layer 2. And in that case, let's go to Filter, come down to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and it's at about 8.6 pixels right now, which I think I might pull that back to say maybe let's try like 7.4 or something. You get the idea. You're going to start small and work your way up. I'm going to hit OK, and now I am ready to basically come up into 3D and make a new mesh from grayscale. See, it says grayscale. One thing that we forgot to do to this, and we want to make sure that you actually do, is you know, come in and convert that to desaturate it. So let's desaturate that layer. Okay, now we have a black and white, and that's what we want. All right. Now you can also tell that in here, the values from here to here, we should actually make this darker in here to kind of match that. So, you know, it doesn't have a stair stepping going on with the height and the width. So in this case, I'll just come back, and I think I might just use a brush, and I'll just keep it black, and I think I'll set, yeah, we'll go with mid opacity there. Okay, and there you go. Let's put in some terrain shifting there. Okay, so that gives us a pretty good approximation. So now we're ready to actually convert this layer. I'm going to actually do a save real quick just to make sure that yeah, we'll save it. I'm going to save this as, okay, tutorial, and it's going into Creator 16-bit. Okay, so I've saved my project now, and everything's routed right. Now the next step is we want to come up into our 3D and go new mesh from grayscale and hit plane. All right, it'll update and do a couple of things, and it'll give us our mesh, and you'll see over here that it's created some other layers and stuff. This one right here, the layer 2 depth, if I double click that takes us to this layer 2 PSB file, and we also have our mesh right there. So that's how you get back to your original PSB. All right, and that's about it. Now if you hit K on the keyboard, bring up your rotation tools here, it looks pretty good. I mean, it's kind of what I expected. The height is really up there, but if you look down here, it kind of mimics what was going on in there. So that's pretty good. And you'll also notice that the mesh looks really clean. There's not a lot of spiking going on. I mean, there's some right there. We may want to add just a little bit more smoothing to this, but in this case, let's first play around with the Y, and click on your Y and pull up or down, and you can kind of size that out to what it should be. So I'm just eyeballing it here and kind of thinking, yeah, you know, it should probably look like that. I don't know. I mean, I have some height. I mean, you can see it's not extreme. So let's pull it up just a little bit more. All right, something like that. That kind of looks craterous. Okay, so now that we have this, I like that mesh, and let's just put it back into its regular origin. I like to put this back into a 0 on all levels here. Let's go to 0 and 0 this out, because that helps Maya import it kind of directly up and down, and you don't have to go looking for your mesh, because sometimes if you import these without doing this, your mesh will come into Maya kind of in weird places. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so we have that mesh. Now, the next thing, let's just output this mesh real quick, and we'll go to Export 3D Layer. And when you export this layer, I'm going to save this as 16-bit crater and actual mesh, give it a name there, tutorial. And instead of having a DAE, you want to change your format of, well, I mean, you can experiment with these, but I'm just going to use an OBJ. All right, and there it is. So should be marked 16-bit crater mesh tutorial. All right, we'll save that. And essentially it just saved out that file to there. So now let's turn off this right there, and let's go to this layer 2 copy right here. And if this were the actual color of what we want to assign to that mesh in Maya, we can go ahead and just output this as a TIFF. So I'll leave it there and go to File and Save As, and I'm going to put this as our 16-bit crater color map, okay, because that's kind of what we're going to use it for. And there we go. So instead of saving it as a Photoshop document, I'm going to switch it up to a TIFF, and I'm not going to save layers or anything because that's that. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and in this case I'll go ahead and hit OK, and it should be ready to go. So cool. Let's get out of Photoshop and let's get back into Maya. Essentially this is what it's going to sort of come out looking like, but let's set up a new project real quick. I'm going to go ahead and just come in here and just go to File, New Scene, and I don't need to save changes there. And since we're going to do a quick fly-through, we're going to set up a cam and do a quick fly-through. So let's make that a good 3,000 frames or something, just to start off with, so that way when we create our motion paths and stuff, we'll have a set value. Okay, so now it's time to import that mesh. So just come up into File, go to your import, and let's look for that mesh. Now it's actually going to be this 16-bit crater mesh OBJ. So what you want to do is make sure that you have your files OBJ enabled, and I'll click on that one and we'll open it. It'll show up right there. It's pretty small, as you can see, so usually what I do is just sort of activate it and scale that thing up, give it quite a bit of scale. And at the same time, let's see, I like to kind of maybe rotate it, but let's do a modify and just sort of modify its center pivot. That'll sort of give us a, give us a way to go there. Flatten it down a little bit and maybe move it back. Let's go back a little bit over there. And there it is. Go into shaded mode. And it'll look like this. It looks kind of strange in the viewport. If I turn on high quality rendering, you can see it kind of has that. And if I do a regular render over here in our render view, we will get something that looks like that. And in and of itself, doesn't look all that good. Yeah, excuse me. So let's make a couple of quick changes to this. Because we need to set some lighting in there. I usually kind of go with, when I'm doing terrain and stuff like this, a real easy way to go is just go into your indirect lighting tab, and we'll just create a physical sun and sky. When I create mine, I have a mouse grip that lets me choose this MIA photographic over the simple, which I like much better. So there's a tutorial on that. You might want to go back and watch it. I'm going to hit OK. All right, so now that I have all that, let's just do another quick render and see where we're at. I'll bring that over. Okay, there's our mesh. We're not seeing the sky because we just need to adjust our angle a little more. So let's come in here and do a quick quick angle adjustment, and let's see. Yeah, we'll stay with that. Maybe roll it down a little bit more, bring it down just a little bit. Okay, we're going to take another render, and I'm just going to go with default values here because it's really not important at the moment to, fine tune this. But, essentially that's a pretty clean looking mesh. So now we're ready for stage 2. Let's bring on our go back to your materials section. Let's bring on a just create like a Lambert. This will be our default Lambert. Well, let's choose it. Grab your choose tool, and there it is. And okay, so now that we have this Lambert, let's hook up a picture, our TIFF file to that. So let's grab a 2D texture, click on your file, and let's sort of bring those back over here where they should be. And we're going to attach that TIFF file right here. So in your attribute editor over here, let's go in, let's navigate to that, where was it, Creator 16-bit, and this was the Creator 16-bit tutorial TIFF. Okay, so there was my output. I'm going to go ahead and hook that up, and you'll notice that it comes in looking like this. And sometimes when you're working with a 16-bit, you won't get a good swatch reading because I don't think that this graphics, whatever's going on here, is not comprehending a 16-bit, 16-bit image. So anyway, just something to be aware of. And now what I'll do is just go ahead and drag and drop that onto the bump map. Okay, so drag and drop it over there, attach it to the bump map, and now we have. Oh, excuse me. We don't want to go bump map. We want to go color. So we'll just do a couple undos right there. And let's see here. There we go. Okay, so middle mouse, drop, and just go to color. And that'll assign that color to that Lambert 2. Come over here. Let's assign that to the plane. Right mouse click, come down, and we'll go with that Lambert 2. And turn our textures on, and I think in this case I'll turn high quality off. So there we go. Pretty good. Let's take a quick render just to see what we're starting out with from the beginning. And there it is, a pretty clean mesh. All right. Now there might be a couple of things I want to do real quick to make this render look a lot better. And in this case, since I'm working with the physical sun and sky, I might want to go into this this exposure node, the MIA exposure. Click on that, and here's my properties for that. I usually, in some cases, I'm just going to lower my gamma. You may or may not want to ever do that, but I'm going to go with that. I'm going to pump up my saturation a little bit. We'll put the blacks. Actually, I'm going to bring the crushing blacks down, burn highlights up a bit, and I'm going to set my f-stop at 8.5. And that should give me a little bit better look, and I'm going to change the direction of this sun direction. And sometimes in order to get to that sun direction, you have to come over into your outliner and get on from there. And I think what I'll do is just bring it up a little bit and rotate it. Let's rotate this sort of more like, let's just experiment with that real quick. All right, now I'm going to do another quick render, and we'll see what we got. Okay, so already it's much better looking. So, yeah, that's pretty cool. We can work with that. All right, now let's do something real quick here. Let's go back into our sort of home view. Maybe even a top view there. Okay, so here's sort of how we should do a fly through. Let's start and come in and cruise around like that and go back out that way. We'll do the classic kind of, rove around the crater scene here. All right, so just hit the space bar, and that'll bring you up into all 4 of your views. Bring your cursor over, hit your space bar again over here, and there we go. There's our mesh. I might want to go into shaded mode as well here. I might turn the textures on, and I don't need high quality necessarily. So, all right, now let's just create a quick motion path. I'm just going to use the CV curve tool and come in here and just sort of do a quick little curve like that. And I think we'll just, yeah, we'll make it turn and come out like that. All right, hit enter on the keyboard. Let's go back over into the main view, hit the space bar, hit the space bar again, and there we go. So that's what we're going to attach our camera to, and we know that it's going to be 3,000 frames long, so that's cool. So let's just maybe create a quick camera and look at our camera. And there we go. At this stage, you could actually just select your curve now, and then make sure you're in your animation menu set and come up to animate and come down to motion path and attach to motion path. And right away you'll notice something wrong. If I take a look at this camera down here, it's pointing backwards. Okay, you may or may want to fly through a scene backwards. I don't know, there's a purpose for it at times, but in this case we want this camera facing straight ahead on the motion path. If I play, you'll notice that it's moving, yeah, it's moving in the wrong direction. Okay, so let's come up here and look at that first. Now you can't really, you have to use certain controls within your motion path in order to sort of animate this camera or any other object that you might have attached to a motion path. So here's the tab for it, right there. And I get this question a lot, and I just want you to know, remember this, that in order to inverse that, if we just click on that button, now our camera is going in the right direction. So you can kind of see what that does. As well, you can fool around with what your front axis is, your up axis, or your front twist, up, side. Like let's say for example I did a side twist. I could actually do that like 90 degrees, and you can see what it does. It goes straight up. If I bring it back to 0, all right. If I do the same thing to the up twist, if I do a 90, it'll twist that way. And if I go back to 0, it'll go back to where it is. And remember, as this is moving along this motion path, you can basically animate any of these characters by just setting a key. It can be a little tricky. You want to make sure you kind of get an idea of what you want to do first. And in some cases, I might, take this motion path and actually come in and do some, get your control vertexes there. And then in this case, I think I might want to maybe start moving the camera down about here. All right, and if I move that down, I can sort of just mess with my motion path like that. Right now I should bring it, the whole motion path, up a little bit, so we'll do that first. Let's go back to object mode. Okay, and there we go. Let's bring this up a little bit. All right, now we can probably work with the vertexes a little better. So if you go back into your vertex mode, and let's see here, I'm gonna bring this down here, and I'll just kind of set a couple of these little guys right here. We'll kind of bring them down, and yeah, just sort of get down there into the crater. All right, and this is the classic fly-through stuff. And it'll look a little jerky in the viewport, but when you actually work with it a little bit in the editors, you can smooth this stuff out. And Maya's working extra hard to kind of comprehend the size of this mesh. So, all right, I'll leave that one there, and this one I'll leave. I'm going to bring this one down a little bit. Okay, so there we go. We've got some changes in our motion path, and we're probably ready to see what that looks like as a fly-through. So if you select your camera, you can just come up into your panels, and we'll just look through that selected camera. Make sure you're at the beginning of the animation, and we are now flying through that scene. And what you're seeing there is the motion path in the front. And there we go. So that looks pretty good. If I were just to stop this, for example, and try and do a render, let's see what that looks like. Here's our render view, and we want to see kind of what we're looking like inside of that crater. I'm going to go ahead and hit render. Okay, you'll notice that it's a completely different camera view. It is the perspective camera view. So the first thing you need to do when you're changed your camera over here is to come in here, and let's look through, let's actually go to our render menu up here, come down and render, and now we want to switch our render over to that new camera. So now we'll get a better idea of what's going on there. Okay, and as you'll see, if you've enabled your physical sun and sky system, this is what you will get. You won't, it'll look weird, and you'll say, why? Well, remember, we added a new camera into our physical sun and sky system, and so really what you want to do is, I'm going to do this clear graph for a second. Let's come into our utilities, and this is what we want to look at. Right here, we need to make sure the physical sun and sky has been updated for that camera. Okay, so that will give us the correct render. So always remember to update your camera connection. That's the last part of the process. Most of the time you'll get a warning like this, and that just means that, you know, this thing is attached to another camera. Do you really want to attach it to this new cam? And you say yes. So that's that. All right, now if we do a render, there it is. Okay. So now it's sort of a matter of doing a bump map or, you know, something of that nature to start working on this texture. I'm going to go back here into my perspective view for a second, and let's take a look at what this looks like overall. Make sure you come over to your render, go back over to your perspective camera, and here's what it looks like. So if this were a black and white image, you could paint in Photoshop anything you want on top of your color displacement map, and those colors will, you know, basically translate into here. So looking pretty good. I think I'll do one more render, and let's see what it looks like from this side. If we come in over here. But that's a cool way to get terrain. It's a cool way to get sort of a realistic, natural terrain. So there you go. Make yourself some craters. Okay, so that concludes this tutorial, and I hope you've learned something. And as always, be a good person today, tomorrow, and all year. And you know, read a book, because it's good for your brain, and you don't read enough. And make sure it's the owner's manual for Maya. Okay, the answers are in there, and Google is your friend. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I'm sorry this one was so long, but you need it. All right, so there you go.